There we go. I can hear you now.
Okay.
Awesome. So welcome, Witchy friends, to my first YouTube video, and we are here with the one, the only, the savior of today's video, Mrs. M.
Hi, how are you? How's everybody doing?
You are definitely someone who, actually, the first video I ever saw on shadow work was actually your video.
Really?
Yes, it was on TikTok, and that's how I found your YouTube. And I was like, I'm not going to say nothing on her YouTube live. I just want to sit and observe.
It's weird because I've heard the term shadow work for a while, but it wasn't until the pandemic when I started doing my own shadow work, and it was because I took this as the universe telling me, it is now time, child, for you to heal.
It's time to slow down and work on stuff I've been repressing for years.
Exactly. So am I the expert at this? Absolutely not. I am shocked that I am the first video that you saw of it, but I have come to a conclusion that I honestly believe my guides are pushing me this way. I love working with people, and so I think they were making me heal myself so that way I can go out and help others heal as well.
It's awesome. That's something that I'm very drawn to, is like I want to be a healer. Like, I've spent years being a CNA, and my thing is, like, I have seen horrible things in my life, and I've seen a lot of horrible things happen to other good people, and I've seen good people damaged to the point that, and push the point where they become the assholes or the bad people of this world, because there's a very fine line between a good person and a bad person, and it's not necessarily because that person is born. I don't believe that people are born evil. Like, you look at even some of the most notorious, like, awful people throughout history. If you go back, it does not excuse their behaviors and what they've done, but if you look back, there's childhood trauma, there's sexual things that happen to them that literally pushes them to the point where they break from reality.
Yeah, there's a catalyst to this. As a witch, I find it important for us to do this work because we do have a responsibility to keep our power in check.
Yes.
And without healing, sometimes that energy is like frayed threads of a piece of yarn. You've got all these things coming out, and you just want to make a sweater.
Yeah. I'm just trying to sit here and crochet a sweater.
Stop fraying, and you get all frustrated, right?
I'm just sitting here trying to make resin art, and you're killing me.
Why are these bubbles coming into the surface now? Like,
that happened 26 years ago. Why is that popping up in my head? I've never thought of that.
I just poured the resin 20 minutes ago. Why is it coming up now? Because it took that long for it to come up and rise to the surface. I love that analogy. I'm gonna start using that one. Yes.
That's a really good analogy.
Like resin work.
It is, because if you don't, I don't know how you do it. I know I've seen like 3 videos, which everyone in the world thinks you've seen 2 YouTube videos. You're a pro or something. But right. I've seen like where people do like bigger resin art like you do, and they have to like apply heat to get rid of the imperfections. And I think that is a beautiful analogy, because if we have, like, you look at people who have it all, born into money, who are born white, they're born a male, they have systematically everything going for them, but you look at them and a lot of times they're the most vapid, inconsiderate people, because the heat is what, like you take like metal, you can't turn a piece of a wrought iron into a cast iron, like to like a pot, unless there's heat applied. Right. And that's like, I'm a huge Harry Potter fan, and so
I just finished reading the books.
I love it. I listen to them on audiobooks. I love it. But I love the idea of like the phoenix, like you rise from the ashes, because fire does not destroy. Fire just simply transforms into another state of matter. And I think that there's certain people in this world that they have had the fire held to them, and it shows by the way they look or by the way they interact with people, and they get to a certain age and they don't deal with these issues, and people think, oh, well, you're at a certain age, so you're no good no more. You have nothing to contribute, so they think you're automatically not worth the air that you breathe, and I don't think that's true.
I agree with that. There's a certain degree that in my videos on TikTok, a lot of times I struggle with myself being as positive as I am. I want to show the true situation of what it's like just being a person living my truth, right? Yeah. So that's why I do the videos I do on TikTok. It's just me living my truth. Sometimes my truth is, here's a ritual I want to show you. Sometimes my truth is like yesterday when I'm on the couch all day long in severe pain. But I still try to remain positive. And why is that? That kind of gives this false narrative to people I worry about. But the reason why I try to stay positive is that fire is always going to be fire. It is going to do what fire does. You will always have situations in your life that cause you pain, cause you grief. It is the human struggle from the day we are born until the day we die. Situations happen. However, we as humans get to decide, how are we going to tend to that fire? Are we going to tend to that fire to where it transforms us into something better than what we thought we were? Or is it going to transform us into dust?
Yeah.
And so I try to stay positive during those things, because for me, and I'm not speaking for everybody else, because some people have to live in that reality. But for me, I have to plan for the worst and hope for the best, and give myself that little piece of positivity, or I will be dust.
Yeah.
So this is my coping mechanism for my life. I have to make sure that I'm tending my fire in a way that would make me a better person. So
I literally was talking about, because last night was the strawberry moon, and I was doing a moon ritual last night, and I literally said on my live that someone asked me like how I'm doing. And sometimes like someone can ask you how you're doing. You're like, oh, I'm fine, push it off. But there's sometimes people ask you, how are you doing? And you're like, ah!
I've got to be real.
Exactly. And I told him, I said, I haven't been as active on TikTok the past like couple of days because I have BPD and I have an anxiety and mood disorder. My brain does not make serotonin or dopamine. So I don't have anything to regulate my mood right now. And I was like, there's so much bad in this world, especially on TikTok. There's so much negativity on TikTok. And I'm like, I don't want to fuel that fire. But at the same time, I don't want to fake a smile because I feel like that's something that people can tell.
Right.
And it's not enough mindlessness going on.
It's not genuine and it's not authentic. And, you know, by watching me, I believe in authenticity. And if you are going to ask me how I'm feeling, I'm going to tell you how I'm feeling. You might not like that I told you, yes, I feel like I'm going to throw up, and I threw up 3 times already today. I'm sorry. Like, you know, you might not like that, but that is truth and that is life. And we need to normalize real life. This is really what happens to me. This is really how I am. Some days I'm super witchy. Sometimes I'm super nerdy. Sometimes I'm really cryy. Okay?
Yeah.
It happens.
Like people have this, one thing I've said repeatedly, and I feel like you have said this in your videos or maybe on your live before, is that people see me and they're like, you're so happy, you're so bubbly, Stefan. But I'm like, you have to realize when you watch these TikTok videos, that is the 30 seconds out of that day that the person is at their best behavior. And that you're only seeing what people want you to see. And so that's why I like to be like, hey, I'm not posting videos today because I literally have sat in the floor and cried my eyes out all day. And people are like, well, you know, there's so much negativity, you should just be raw and real. But I'm like, yes, but there's enough people fueling that that bad, you know what I mean?
Right. And that's, like you said, that there's too much of that fueling of the negative fire, and that doesn't tend my fire. That doesn't help me become what I want, you know?
Exactly.
So I am going to you know, I'm not gonna invalidate how they feel. Like, you can be angry, and Lord knows there are so many things in this world right now to be angry over and to be sad over, and I am not invalidating any one of those things. But for me as an individual, some days I have to unplug from all of it because it gets overwhelming for me to deal with that much sadness, and I have to put out a positivity. I have to find that silver lining just so that way my mental health is in check.
It is a little stressful because before I don't have a huge following, but I do have several people I have several people that message me and be like, you literally are the source of good that keeps me going through the day sometimes. And I'm like, great. But at the same time, I'm like, it's very flattering. And to me, for someone to say that you've brought joy to my life, that is the biggest compliment to me. But also it's like, oh my God, there's people counting on me to bring joy to their life. Dadgummit, what do I do? It's like I'm terrified of that's why when I'm put out my down. Exactly. That's why when I say in my videos that there is a million ways to do one thing.
Right.
And all those things are valid. And just because I do something different does not mean that you're wrong. I think the only wrong part of the situation is when people try to be the snobs of witch talk and be like, well, that's not how it was done 1,000 years ago. And the way that I explain it is that witches were ahead of their time. Witches were people that understood science before science was science, before it was relatively known. And at the end of the day, I feel like we're all energy. And I feel like that energy moves on. And whether people think the energy moves on to like Valhalla, or they feel like it moves on to heaven, or they feel like it just roams the earth, I personally think that, like I said, at the end of the day, we're all energy. And I feel like we're giving one life in this flesh sack. Yeah. And whether we move on to another life, the reincarnation, that's to each their own. But the way I try to explain it is that just because I say something does not mean it's factual.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of my biggest problems with witch talk in general, is that there's so many people. I'm not talking about gatekeeping with like closed practices. I'm talking about like, oh no. So I had someone message me saying you can't use that. I made a video about what I use as a cauldron. It is a 3-quart Dutch oven. And they're like, you can't do that. That's not a cauldron. That's cooking utensils. Excuse me. Home interior, please.
This right here, this is my little mini cauldron. It is just an oil burner. That's it.
I love that.
But guess what? It's my cauldron. Witches used whatever they could use. Like, not everybody had the ability to go out and buy specific cookware. And what do you think a cauldron is, by the way? It is cookware. Like,
do you think that witches were going out to Pottery Barn in like 13 AD?
They were going to IKEA. They're going to IKEA and getting the little, the little jars to make everything super cute. No.
Yeah. Yes. No. The jar was called like Oshkosh.
Baby food jar and masking tape. Like, give me a break.
I tell everybody because for my birthday, I'm very simple. I'm like, I love candles. I love stuff like that. But to me, the most exciting part about getting a candle is the jar. I love the jars.
Hold on, I'm going to walk off camera for a moment so I can retrieve something so you can understand my love of jars. There's more. I got octagon jars too. See? It's a witch thing. We're super easy.
I have 6 boxes of jars.
We are super easy to please. I've got boxes of jars. I've got boxes. I collect so many boxes, like boxes. And the other super easy thing to get me is little tiny like notebooks. There's nothing in here. It's a kid put stickers on it for me. and I loved it, and I'm keeping it. I've got these little notebooks, and
I
these
love that.
notebooks are everything. But yeah, it's jars.
I love journals. Like this is one that I made.
Oh yes, yours are amazing. I need to order one.
And it's, I would see that's the, I was someone asked me if I'd make a video about how to make it, and it is not that hard. It honestly is. The hardest part is about it is working with the vegan leather and making sure you're cutting it so it doesn't look like it's all messed up.
Yeah.
But literally all you need is paper, a PVA glue, and a little paintbrush, and there's your spine. Oh, and someone's like, oh, well, I don't have the money for they said, oh, you probably have so much expensive equipment. And a vice grip. That's all you need.
That's a book press, man.
That's a book press. I ain't got $200 for a metal book press.
But that brings me back to like the whole, we use what we have. And I've told my students before, I can tell when somebody came from a poor family.
Yeah.
How you can tell is that most of us who make things came from a poor family. Because we would see the pretty things that people could buy, and we're like, how can I make that for me? How can I make that on the cheap? What do I have to pretend like I got that? So, fashion, most people who grew up poor, we have the strangest fashion sense in the world, because we don't mind going to thrift shops and like putting pieces together. Like that's our thing. We love that.
We love it. And see, that's when I think it also comes back to shadow work, is that people's like, well, I don't have the money for expensive rooms. My husband made these out of river rocks and a Sharpie.
Yeah.
Although I haven't started using them yet because I'm still learning how to read them, but that's the thing. A witchcraft. There's this witch that owns a local metaphysical store, and me and her got talking. She said she's like you. She's been practicing for many years, and she said I didn't buy nothing at first. She said you don't have to. She said use what you have. That's what witches do, and I think that's one of the truest cores to me is that I don't go out and buy brand new stuff. I go to thrift stores because I feel like people waste so much stuff.
Yep.
And things can have so many different meanings. Like, oh, you don't have a pendulum. Great. Remember that necklace you have? Exactly.
Yeah. I have a necklace that my husband used to wear, and it sits right next to me. It's an old seashell necklace that he used to wear, and I use that. Like that.
Also, all you need is a ribbon and use your wedding ring. That means more to you than anything.
Right.
I used to use, before I got a pendulum, I used my wedding ring and a piece of twine. Actually, that's a lie. It was fishing string. But anyway.
It works. It works. And that's the thing is like, so with shadow work, the reason why I find it so completely important to do this work, and we'll, when you're ready, we'll talk about what do I think shadow work is. But it's important to do the work because as you are pulling back what drains your energy, you're now able to see that intuitively, one, you knew what to grab in the first place.
Yes.
Two, you don't need all those things. I have been a practicing witch for 20 years now, and I don't need those things. I was closeted for many, many years. My ex-husband is evangelical. So that's another story entirely.
I feel the trauma coming through the screen.
So like I had to hide. I couldn't be who I really was. And I had been on this journey since I was about 14 years old, 17, actually leaving the church that I grew up with. But I was closeted. So I had to learn how to really tap into my energy. Where was I couldn't have that candle laying out. I couldn't have those herbs laying out. I couldn't have all the things that are supposed to bring you extra energy. And I believe that for me, and I'm only speaking for me, but But I believe for me, that made me a more powerful witch, because now that I have mastered that energy inside of me, I know how to draw the energy from things.
I think for beginner witches, I believe that a lot of different tools actually can get in the way.
Yes.
Because you're relying on that wand. And don't get me wrong, I make wands. There's nothing wrong with using a wand. But I feel like if you start out only learning how to direct your energy with your wand or with your dagger or whatever it is, your athame, I feel like you never learn how to channel or home in on your energy.
Yep.
And it's great. There's nothing wrong with buying all these things. There's nothing wrong with having these things, but do not let them get in the way.
Right. Right. Those are tools. They are
Exactly.
not the energy. They are the tools to help.
Exactly.
But you know, that is all about knowing who you are. And yes, if you come from a situation in which your life is trauma informed, if life was so traumatic that it carved you into the being that you are, it is super important for you to do that shadow work. It is important for you to realize where certain insecurities come from, where are certain things. And I tell everybody that when they ask, well, what exactly is shadow work? And I'm like, it is witch therapy. It is us getting very real and very ugly with ourselves. There are things that I say and do that I don't like.
Yeah. And that's what we have to get. That's what you have to get down to, is that you're an English teacher, so you'll totally get this reference. The way that I look at shadow work is the way that, like in elementary English class, you have word association trees.
Mm-hmm.
So the word like car. Well, what's associated to car? A truck. And you go further on. I think that's what shadow work is. And people think, oh, well, I did shadow work for 20 minutes, so I don't have to readdress that.
No.
It's not a one and done.
No, I have a journal, and I know that that's a luxury for me, because a couple of reasons. One, I have the luxury of knowing that whatever I write in that journal is private to me, and nobody in my house is going to read it. Yes. So the things that I need to say that need to be held in a safe spot, I have the ability to write those things. Not everybody has that luxury.
And being out and open and out of the witchy closet or broom closet, that is a privilege for us.
Yes.
Because there's so many. I was in the witchy closet for the broom closet for about 5-6 years, just studying, because I come from a very religious, I was a Southern Baptist preacher's kid, evangelical preacher's kid. And I was, I said last night on my live, people would not recognize me from a year or two ago because I was still in this mentality of trying to do everything and anything to please my parents. I was a conservative Republican Christian. And I went to school and studied biblical theology, and I was like, okay, this is going to strengthen my faith. And then after one semester, I left an atheist.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, and it just like, I am a completely different person. And if anyone's wondering, I never voted for Trump. No, I voted for me some Hillary. But if anybody asks me, I'm like, well, Hillary lost, but I support him because in my household, growing up, you had no right to question the preacher, and you had no right to question the commander-in-chief. So you support them without question. And you were talking while we were having technical difficulties that the way you raise your kids is completely opposite of that. And it's a beautiful thing, even though it backfired sometimes.
So those of you that are just hearing this, because we did try this live at one point, the way that my husband and I raised our children is different than most families in the South. We did not raise our children in a church because my husband is atheist and I am a pagan. I figured that their spiritual journey was for them and them only. And I do not have the right to put in their brain how they want to connect to divinity. So that was their They get to choose whatever they want to choose. We had literature around for them to read. Like I even had a Bible in the house. So like you could read whatever you want, right?
Yeah. You honestly made me cry yesterday when I was watching your live, because I've never heard somebody talk about their child the way you talk about your children. And you're like, you have a non-binary child. And you said, I celebrate my child. And I was like, I don't know what that's like. That is amazing.
That's a shame. And it's one of the reasons why I think you also saw the video where I promoted Paul Lanner from Haunters Against Hate. I am something called a haunter, which is somebody that helps build, design, and act in haunted attractions. So think of like, I know in North Carolina, oh no, I'm running out of time. No, it's not gonna, we'll do this a second time if I run out of time. So you just stitch them together.
Yeah.
but I'm closing that out. There we go. But Paul and I, Paul developed this thing called Haunters Against Hate. And what happened to get that together was that there was a haunt review company that was very well known in the industry. Like people would pay them to come out to their haunts to kind of like review and get customer recognition, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Well, this person who was reviewing all the haunts after the Pulse nightclub massacre, he went on Twitter and he said, I didn't see, excuse me for saying this word, this is the one word that like I will write you up in a heartbeat in my classroom for saying. So if my students are watching this right now, you know what this means to me. The guy wrote on Twitter, I didn't see the faggot's name that I wanted to see. And with that, the haunt community was like, hold on. Like we are not about that kind of hate. And Paul Lanner developed Haunters Against Hate, and it is a group of haunts that have said that particular person is not welcome, like that review group is not welcomed at our haunts, and that we stand with the LGBTQ community and people of color community. Like this is, we do not let people bully someone based on things that they cannot change. Like that's not fair. So I am very much a ally, I guess you would say.
I think that that's also a big part of modern day like witchcraft is not only do you have to decolonize your witchcraft, but also I'm 100% willing to say that I believe that white people are inherently racist because we're bred. I believe that straight people are inherently homophobic. I believe that men are inherently misogynistic. I believe cisgender people are inherently transphobic because we're taught this from a young age. We have to go back and work on ourselves.
So you know, by talking to me, that I consider myself an ally to all, right?
Yes.
But when I was probably about 11 or 12 years old, we had a family friend that came out as gay. She had a girlfriend. And my 12-year-old mind immediately went, was she attracted to me? What? Like, that's the dumbest thing in the world.
Yeah.
Like, and I thought, oh my God, I had like showered, like, because we would go camping and like there was showers and stuff like that. So it's like, oh my God.
What has she thought of me?
Like, you know, and that is not something I ever wanted to think. Somewhere in the lines, because I was 11 or 12, that had gotten taught to me.
Yeah. And
it took me being real that was something I said and going, wow, you are really shitty for that. You know, like
exactly. And see, that's a big part of it. That's where I think the misconceptions of shadow work comes in, because shadow work is not, well, sometimes I'm a bad person. No. You cannot be vague. You have to get brutally, you have to admit to yourself, I as a gay man had to fully break down the fact that I was taught misogyny. Yes. I was taught racism. And I had to say that.
Fix that.
Yes, I had to honestly sit down and say, sometimes I have these feelings that women don't deserve this or that. And I have to say, okay, why do I think that? And that's how you work on it. And then like you have to break down these barriers. And these are not like little doors that you can open the lock and go in and out. These are doors that you have trapped shut.
Yes.
Because we don't want to think that we're racist. We don't want to think that we're misogynistic or homophobic or transphobic. But these are things, fleeting thoughts are something that I call it intrusive thoughts. These are things that come into our mind for a reason. And when I have an intrusive thought like, oh, oh God, I'm so ugly, or I'm so fat, or why can't I just be normal? I literally have to think, there's a reason why I'm thinking this. Someone's made me feel this way. So, and someone's made me believe this. So I have to, it is not a pretty, shadow work is not a pretty thing.
No.
A few things that the Witchy friends reached out and asked that they specifically wanted you to talk about, because like I said, you have been doing this a lot longer than me, and you know a lot more than me about this. So what is shadow work?
Okay, so like I said before, shadow work in a very, very simplified way is witch therapy. What we do this for is so that way, and the way I explain is that in order to hide pieces of ourselves that are in the shadows, pieces of ourselves that we don't want to have light on them, it takes energy from us to mask those parts of us.
A lot.
That is energy that can be used to manifest what you want in your life. So it's important for you to shine light on those shadows and go, all right, how do I fix that shadow? How do I make it to where I'm not ashamed of what's in there, and I can show that to everybody, and I'm not wasting my energy by covering it up.
Exactly. Now, how do you do shadow work, and what are some of your favorite? I have a few of my favorite things I use for shadow work, but what are some of your favorite ways to do shadow work that work best for you that might help others?
So I am a very visual person. I'm very much a mind map person as well. So in my journal, I will actually have, so it's so English teacher of me. Okay, so I have a little book, and in the front of the book is a table of contents. And each little notch in that table of contents is something about me that I don't like. So like for the first one, it was my need to shrink myself. That was the first thing that I really kind of focused in on, is like, why do I always feel like I need to move out of the way? I do that everywhere I go, and it's an aggravation to me. Like, why do I feel like I don't have the worth to be seen? Like everybody has more of a right to the space than I have the right to the space. So I did that. And as I was doing that, it's like a bubble map. So in the middle of it says what I feel, and then I just start writing things down, and I just attach them to that bubble. And if it's something towards another bubble, I go to that. So it's just this big mind map that I do. I also, if I get lost in my shadow work, and when I say lost in my shadow work, I mean I've hit a roadblock to where my mind won't give that information anymore. And you will get those. You'll get to a point where your brain goes, I've had enough. We're not going to review this anymore. When it gets that way, then I ask my cards. I pull my tarot cards, and I ask my cards for guidance. Why am I not supposed to see this right now? And is there a purpose for me stopping?
Exactly.
And oftentimes it is, but my favorite part of shadow work is just asking myself these questions and allowing myself to go down the rabbit hole, and answering those questions as uncomfortable as it makes me feel. And I do it everywhere. Like I can be in the shower doing shadow work. Like shadow work isn't something where you've got to have like your altar set up and you're at the front of your altar doing anything. Like if that brings you peace and comfort, great, you do it, boo. Like that's, but for
it doesn't have to be this. A lot of people think that shadow work has to be this formal thing, but like you said, one of my biggest times of doing shadow work is in the car by myself, My car, my radio doesn't work, so I have nothing but my thoughts. So I'll leave my house to go 10 minutes up the street, and I'll go get a hamburger. I'm like, can I get double cheese? Or I'm in the shower, or right before I go to sleep, like your mind wanders. Like it doesn't have to be this formal thing. Like
No,
for me, one of my favorite ways is my tarot deck. And I'm not gonna lie, there's nothing wrong with putting your shadow work on pause or moving on to another part. Because for me, I got told something a couple of weeks ago, and about a month and a half ago, and I literally put my cards down and did not touch them for like a month because I was terrified at what it told me, because what it said came true. And I'm like, I am too scared. So it goes back to the whole question, the whole thing of don't ask a question unless you're really ready for the answer.
Right. And that's an important fact in shadow work. It's like, it's an important fact in any life thing.
Yeah.
Don't ask somebody what, if you think your butt looks fat in those jeans, don't ask anybody else, because they're going to lie to you, and you know it's going to be a lie because you don't feel like your butt looks skinny in those jeans. So no matter what they say, it ain't going to be the truth to you. So
skinny legend.
If you are not ready, don't ask. Like that's the biggest thing. And you know, my husband is the best thing since sliced bread to me, right? And there are people that can't stand it. Why? Because he tells the truth. He tells you the truth even if you don't want to hear the truth. His thing is, don't ask me if you don't want my opinion. And that is shadow work. Don't, because
it doesn't help. Exactly. No. It doesn't help for that. See, that's why I love my pendulum. This is my husband's pendulum that we have hanging in my witchy room. But because copper speaks to him. But for me, Persephone is over there on my altar. And a weird thing is, I did not even know, I named her Persephone, and I'm a secular witch, so I did not know Persephone was even, you know, a thing. And I'm like, it's just a name that was called to me. But I don't
work with a whole lot of deities. I have a few that have shown up, and it's kind of weird because I'm like you, I'm secular, and I'm kind of drawn to everything, the study of everything. And
yes,
I view gods and goddesses in a very different way than most people as well. My view on gods and goddesses these are parts of humanity that we have labeled, and we've given, like, this energy is a specific type of energy, and so we label it so that way we can understand it.
Exactly.
So these gods and goddesses are nothing but this energy. We can name them anything in any single culture. They're all the same energy. We just call it a different thing.
See, that's my thing with that. Also, I kind of share the same view of like deities and stuff like that, is that even though I'm a secular witch, I consider myself a secular witch, not because I don't believe in them, it's because I don't feel drawn to work with them. But for me, like, I think the only reason why we have goddesses and gods is because of gender as a social construct. This energy is considered masculine. This one's considered feminine. And also when it comes to gods such as like the Norse gods and stuff like that, I think the only reason why people depict them as white is because I think that a whole group of white people started worshiping these things like, oh, we must be made in the eyes of our creator. That's one thing I think that like race, like stuff like that, gender, that is an earthly flesh sack thing that we try to pin on everything. And
like if you can look in any culture, and their gods and goddesses will look like the culture that they come from. And I find that a very true line in paganism for me, that kind of opened my whole idea on what the universal energy was that and you know this to be true, growing up Christian, you are raised to believe that you are created in the image of God.
Yep.
In paganism, we create the image of God. Exactly. That's what it was like. We create the image of God. And I was like, that's like a mind-blowing moment there. It's like, okay, now I understand why we have all these different looking gods and goddesses.
Exactly.
Sorry, I got myself choked up there.
And also, the video that one of the witchy friends, I can't remember who it was, that sent me that video that I sent to you.
Yeah.
Do you have to relive the same physical trauma as if you are still reliving that in order to work through your trauma?
Okay. And like I told you, I watched that video and she's spot on about some things.
Mhm.
And some other things I had issue with.
Okay.
So the woman in the video was talking about not having to relive the trauma when you do shadow work. And I agree with that to a point. Like, you don't have to relive certain things. But here's where I'm going to say enough's enough of self-help, because there's so much I can do for myself. If you are doing shadow work and it causes you that much trauma to think about, to just think about it, you cannot do this by yourself. You need to go get help and talk to somebody. And whether that is somebody spiritual that you feel connected to, whether that is a therapist that you feel connected to, maybe your primary doctor, you can tell them, like, I am feeling off. Can you help me?
And even though we're here to help people, I'm here to help, like, with like guidance if you have a question about something, but I'm not trained. I am not certified. And that actually comes to a really good question. Do you think that shadow work replaces Western medicine or professional psychologists or therapists?
No, I think it goes hand in hand. I really do believe that it goes hand in hand. Like, you know, when Christians have therapy, you'll often hear their pastor also telling them to, like, pray along with that. So I think that this Western idea of therapy is a good idea, but it also goes hand in hand with that spiritual practice of I am practicing what I'm learning. You know, I am practicing the love that I am being taught to feel for the first time. And I find that that's a lot of people's shadow work, is that we just don't feel loved. We don't feel seen for who we are. And some of us had it so bad that we do need to go talk to somebody else, so that person and go, you are loved. We need that other person to be validating us.
And that person's not on TikTok.
Yeah, I don't think that it replaces. There's also just years of study that goes into psychology and therapy. I have a friend of mine that got her degree in social work, and she knows, it's a lot.
It's like astrology. It's a lot.
Oh my gosh, don't even get me started with astrology. Lord help me, I don't know astrology as well as I should.
Yeah. I consider myself an elemental witch, a hearth witch, and my husband, he's very interested in astrology, and I'm like, what?
Okay. Yeah,
I feel the retrograde, but I don't know. I feel the retrograde, but I don't know what that means.
See, I feel myself as an intuitive witch. I used to call myself a green witch, and I was like, okay, seriously, you kill plants. You can't.
I kill too many plants to be a green witch.
This right here is the best I've ever done with plants. It really is. So, I'm not a green witch. At one point, I was like, oh, I am just a good witch. I'm a white witch. And I was like, that is so lame. Like, that is the lamest thing. Now, if you call yourself a white witch, go for it. Okay. You do you, boo. Like, but for me, that was not the right label. That wasn't enough for me. So I called myself an intuitive witch because I don't subscribe to one train of thought. And for me, energy is everywhere. So if I've done a spell with a Hot Wheels car.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Like, I wanted this person to have good parking. And so I put a Hot Wheels car in there. That is not traditional witchcraft, by the way, guys. Like, 200 years ago, they wouldn't have had that. But
they didn't have Matchbox.
Right. But and the spell worked. The spell worked. They got what they wanted. They had good parking.
It's more about the intention than it is the actual materials.
Yeah. So, but again, we come back to that shadow work. Why is it so important? It works. I am able to put that intent in that object and draw from that object the very specific essence that I wanted. And that's what that is. It's like, I'm drawing something very specific from that Matchbox car. A certain focus. I know myself well enough and I know the things around me well enough to be able to pull that.
Exactly. A witchy friend asks, is there a good place to start, or is it different for everyone?
Different for everybody.
Yeah.
Different from everybody.
Definitely.
Like, for me, it was do not shrink yourself. And now it is on why do you feel ugly? Like, if there's just like, it's just a roller coaster ride.
I tend to abandon my shadow work a lot of times because I'm so ADHD. It's like, why do I care what people feel about how they feel about me? And then I'm like, I can't think about that because I'm too busy about why I don't like myself.
Right.
Or why did I cry? Like, I feel like, I don't know why, but I just feel like you can relate to this. I can hold so much in. I can hold so much in the darkest things that have happened to me, but let me stub my toe. I will have a full mental breakdown. Let me drop a piece of paper. God dang it. Why did this have to happen to me? And then it goes from, why did I stump my toe to why did my mom and dad love me? Like, it's crazy.
That's the point of the shadow work too, is so that way when you do have one little incident that, you know, falls apart, you're not, you know, it can be just that incident. It can be, I just dropped a piece of paper, you know.
I think that people
different.
look at shadow work and they're like, it seems like such a secretive thing. And people, but the thing is that it's honestly not hard to get started because once you sit there, something will rise to the surface.
Right.
Whether it's something that happened 15 years ago or something that happened 15 minutes ago. But also,
the most important thing is to feel, like to be in touch with your feelings.
Be in the moment.
If you're not, that's where you start.
Yeah.
like I can't feel, I can't cry, I can't smile. There's your starting point if you can't feel, you know.
Also, I see a lot of, yes, I think that shadow work is very important, but however, I see some people kind of like pushing shadow work, and I don't think that right now is the perfect time for shadow work for everybody. That is up to you, because if you're at the lowest, if you feel like you're at the lowest point of your life, it is not the time for you to hash out why my parents didn't love me. My whole life is falling apart. Yeah. We need to work on living in the moment and figure out how to survive instead of worrying about what happened 15 years ago.
You know, and that's something that I think about as a teacher with my students. Mm-hmm. If my students are students whose parents are struggling or are getting divorced or something like that, they're at this level of survival. They're coming to school every day just trying to make it through the day. Me trying to teach them what grammar rule the county has decided important, not important, because they're surviving, you know, like.
Yeah.
So for those days, what do I do as a teacher? I love them.
Yeah.
I give them extra care. I tell them that they are valid and that things won't always be bad.
I've had some really crappy teachers, but I've had some really amazing teachers, and we were going through a lot when it was the last year I was in public school, and before I was pulled out because my parents didn't want us to take sex ed, and so we got pulled out, put in a Christian school. And one of my best teachers she knew what was going on. Like, she knew I was going through a lot. So she didn't hound me. She allowed me. Now, she did not let me slack, but there were days where she would let me just lay my head on the desk because she saw that I would literally end up crying. Like, she'd say, Stefan, head up. And she would see like me almost in tears. She's like, you're fine.
You're fine.
But
we had nests in my room. Nests were like places. I had a very large room up until this upcoming year. I've moved to a different room in my school, but my old classroom was very big and I was lucky. Okay. But my kids, when they would have bad days, what kids want to do? They want to hide. They want to get into a fetal position and kind of just sleep it off for a bit. So I would have kids that would ask their teachers, can I go see Miss M? And they would get a pass to come to my class, but then they'd find one of the nests. And what the nest meant was I had blankets and pillows from like just having different type seating. They would take the blanket and pillow and go underneath like one of my desks, like teacher desks, that I'd have somewhere else. And they would just be underneath the teacher desk, like sleeping. And it's fine. Let them do that. That's what they needed. And then when it's time for them to go to the next class, hey, you got to go to the next class. Do you remember what the teacher told you needed to do for this last one? Yes. Okay. Do you need a snack? Do you need something to drink? All right, let's go.
Because a lot of people don't realize is that, like you said, these kids go through a lot.
Yes.
And then they're expected to go to school and learn Pythagorean theorem and calculus while their parents are getting divorced. Yeah. And literally that, for some, I'm sure you've seen it. A lot of kids, that may be the only meal they get all day. So those 6 to 8 hours at school can literally be their only safe space.
And you know what? That is the least of what these kids are going through. Like, I have had students that went to church on their 18th birthday, and when they came back from church on their 18th birthday, their parents had all their stuff in the front yard and told them to get out. Why? Because they're 18 and they don't have to take care of them anymore. I've had I've had to call DCF on because their parents beat them because they were gay. Like, how? Like, that's a whole other story altogether. Like, I am very, how do I put this? I'm trying to get the right words. My kids, I'm going to try not to cry as well. My kids are everything to me. My biological children, my children that I get to have for only a year, they are everything to me, and pouring myself into them and making sure that they know, because I didn't grow up with the luxury of knowing that I was perfect in the eyes of somebody. I want them to know that I think they are the most brilliant, most beautiful, the funniest creatures I have ever seen in my life. So that way they leave my room with a self-confidence that not every kid gets to have. Yeah. And that's why I teach. See, oh God, you got me all in my feelings.
We're doing shadow work on camera.
Ow!
One of the witchy friends asked how it kind of deals with shadow work, but it kind of just deals with witchcraft in general. How did you get started in your craft?
Okay.
I love that
question. My beginnings, I was
for me, I saw the craft one time. No.
So this is why it's funny to me that it's very shocking to my family that I turned out to be a witch. Okay. So first things first, like, I grew up in the 80s. All right. We've already discussed how old I am. All right.
Good so genetics.
Great genetics. But Tom Cruise and Tim Curry in The Legend got me into like magical things. I was a unicorn collector. I loved unicorns as a kid. Like, I was the typical little girl, like,
my mother-in-law loves unicorns, and when the horns get broken off, she wants nothing to do with it.
Yes.
Nothing to do with it.
So it's broken. You can leave it alone now. I Worst Witch of All, which was it's a Halloween movie that used to get played on TV. Tim Curry and Faruka Balsic or something like that. She was in The Craft. He was in that. And so, like, these very magical, like, mystical movies I was always attached to, but I was being raised Catholic and then Mormon. I know.
What did y'all do around Christmas time?
So
that's so confusing.
When I was Catholic was up until I was like 11. And then when I was 12, I was baptized as Mormon. My mom and dad divorced. So my dad, my stepdad, I call him my dad. My dad is Mexican, and like, I grew up in like Hispanic Catholicism. So like, celebrations are huge. Huge. Like,
you haven't lived if you haven't been to a quinceañera.
Yeah. Oh yes. Okay. You've also haven't lived until you've had to actually put on one of the matron. Oh, there are not kind pictures of me.
She's triggered.
But yeah, like so I grew up with this very big celebration, and then we went into being Mormons, and Mormons are very reserved, very quiet, but they are also still very service oriented. And so that service part that I was used to with Catholicism didn't go away. So it was an easier blend. But I started to question.
And Catholicism is very mystical.
Yes, yes.
Very ritualistic. Love it.
So it was something that, as far as witchcraft goes,
it was already in you.
Time. Yeah. My sister's still Catholic, and I was like, you know you have multiple gods, right? Like that just makes her mad. I do it just to make her but when I was Mormon, I was starting to wonder why there were parts that were the same. Both churches claimed to be the only true church, but both churches had similarities. And I was like, well, how can both be the same but
with different religions?
Yeah, like, so it got me studying religion. I went into Buddhism first because I figured that was safer.
Yeah.
I figured it was safer for me to come out and say, I'm not Christian, but I'm Buddhist. And I don't know why in my head I made that, like, why was one safer than the other?
Yeah.
I don't know what that trigger was.
But I do believe that some people would rather say, okay, my daughter's not Catholic, but she's Buddhist, than say, well, my daughter's a witch.
Right, right. So I think that's why. But then again, I was looking in Buddhism, and because I'm a nerd, I looked at some of the stories in Buddhism, and they were matching scripture. And I was just like, wait, like
Christianity does not own the resurrection story.
Right, like, so what was going on? And so I really, really studied religion and tried to understand other people's belief systems, because I never want to offend anybody. That's my personal thing. There's two things that I hold true about myself. One, my integrity is everything. I will do in private what I will do in public. Like that's who I am.
I definitely have, I feel that because I have something that it's one of the first things I've ever seen you say in a video. And I feel like I've never heard this term before you, and it's imposter syndrome.
Yes.
Huge. I feel like, oh my God, people's going to find out I'm a phony. But then the rational side of my brain's like, but you're not a phony.
Right. You're not a phony. You do know what you're talking about, you know?
But I can't tell the left side of my brain that.
But that's a part of your shadow work.
Yes.
That is a part of your shadow work, is like, why do I feel, and it's part of mine, why do I feel like I don't have the right to speak my truth? Because just because you don't think it makes sense doesn't make it less sense to me. That
yeah, I get that. Yeah.
So I started with Buddhism. I looked at all different religions, and I found that as far as paganism goes, that's what felt good. I loved nature. I still love nature. I get replenished by going outside and hiking, and I love talking to plants and hugging trees. Like I am an environmentalist. I love
a tree hugger. I love it.
Yes, I am a tree
Owl
hugger.
kissing, tree hugging.
Right. I just talked to that plant live last night. Okay. Like, come on.
You did.
Like, so it's just who I am. And then I found the word pantheist, and I was like, oh, that's my label. I'm a pantheist. But pantheism still kind of diverted with the things that I didn't believe. And so I found witchcraft, and I found that resonated with me, because there were things that I could do and didn't understand why I could do them. Like, why can I read people the way that I can read them? You know, it might be trauma influenced, you know, picking up on micro things, but then there's also this, I shouldn't know your favorite color. I freak people out at the haunt that I worked at, because I could tell the guest what their favorite candy was.
It's like, don't invite the witch unless you really want this to be spooky.
Right. Like I will really do this. And so
one thing that scared me is that I won't say who it is or what it is, but I had a customer buy a full tarot reading on my site, and it scared me because I never want to be crazy detailed because I'm scared that like it's not going to resonate.
Right.
But I followed my intuition and I was like, there's something health-wise that you're ignoring that the doctors have said, you're fine, quit overreacting, but go for it. I said, but I feel like it has something to do with endometriosis. And I said, I feel like it has something to do with that. She messaged back. She said, I've been crying for 45 minutes because I've been told for 2 years I'll be fine. I just need to have this surgery. And it is for polycystic ovarian syndrome. That scared me because I'm like, how did I know that you had polycystic ovarian syndrome? How did I know you were having a surgery for it? And how did I know that they were going to find out that it's something more rare? Like, that scares me.
And that's the thing too, though, is that because it scares us, that tells me I need more shadow work. I need to be able to believe that I am doing certain things,
Yeah.
There are things that we can't explain that we have. I have the ability to hear your guides.
Yeah. You actually did that last night.
Yes.
When you were doing a reading for somebody.
And here's the weird thing too about your readings. Like, some people are like, oh, I don't want my business being told everywhere. Okay, y'all, when I read your cards, the weirdest thing is most of the time I'll forget it. I will forget every word I said.
Everything.
Yeah, I have to rewatch it. Somebody has to tell me that I said that. I'm like, oh, well, that's kind of cool.
That's why when I do my readings for other people, when someone buys a reading for me, I do a audio form, and I also do a Word document that maps out all the cards. But when I do, this is so nerdy, and this is like, I grew up before CDs. CDs was not a thing. And so I actually do my personal tarot readings and my shadow work on a Walkman.
Yeah.
I love it. And it's double-sided. I can go back and I can list what they are and go back to any shadow, but see, the thing is, like you said, once I do a reading for someone else, and once I do one for me and I process that emotion, 10 minutes later, could not tell you what I had talked about.
Don't know.
It's almost like a fleeting thought.
Yes.
And when I have, when I do tarot readings and I see, like the other day, I don't know if you saw my video, but I had a spirit reach out to me saying that you need to go to the graveyard. And I was like, this has never happened to me before. And I was like, fine, I'll go to the cemetery. And on the way there, I was like, who the hell do I know that's at the cemetery? My family's not buried there. And I remembered, I know someone who's buried there. And then on the way to the cemetery, I was like, I don't even know their name. And someone mentioned, bring your pendulum. I was like, okay, fine, I'll bring my pendulum. So I get there and it's like something whispered. And I'm like, that's his name. And I was like, and I got to the cemetery and I was like, well, there's a lot of Adams out here probably, and it goes by last names. And I was like, I don't know what it is. And then I just took my pendulum and it was pouring that rain, but I had an umbrella. But I just sat there and I just walked around and I was like, I need to go this way, but my pendulum kept swinging this way. And I was like, fine, whatever. So I went back further up, and then it's almost like he was standing behind me, and I'm not going to say his last name because that's intrusive, but it's like I could see him behind me whispering his name. But when I was having these visions or thoughts or whatever it is to go to the cemetery, it's like my physical vision cut out, and I could only see what was in my mind's eye, and it was his grave. And my pendulum took me right to his grave.
Okay, so I don't know if you realized why you had that or not, or if anybody's ever told you. He needed his truth spoken. And so, like, you are the person that was brave enough in his eyes to speak his truth for him. So that way he could say, okay, that's one piece. He's got multiple pieces that need to be fixed before he can be comfortable with his energy where it is. But
it made me sad because his family, he was a preacher's kid. He was a pastor's kid also. And he was considered troubled like I was. And his family told everyone that he choked on the Pop-Tart in his bed and that's how he died. No one believed that. And then the rumors went around that he actually unalived himself. And this energy came to me months ago, and I still have issues differentiating between one spirit and multiple spirits just shouting at me.
Yeah.
And at the time I was getting spirits confused, and then now I know who the energy is, and his death was not an accident. He was not able to live with the idea that he was not allowed to live his truth. And the thing that broke my heart the most is that I'm not going to try to cry, but a couple of months ago, when he first reached out to me, he said that he did not get to live his truth in this life, but he loves that he can live vicariously through me and my husband living openly.
And like that's what I picked up on. That's exactly what I picked up on.
That literally broke my heart. And I feel like you actually said that when I said something to you on my video, and it just it broke my heart, because it's like it kills me how I feel like I am one of the least strongest people I know. I'm very emotional, I'm very erratic, and I look at other people and it's like, God, why can I not be as strong as this person? And then I'm like, and then it comes back to now, and a big part of my shadow work is I have a lot of problems with jealousy. And that's something I don't like to admit. I have a jealousy problem. When I hear people like you talking about your kids, or when I hear other people talking about their gay children and they love them, and I just stay a fleeting thought in my head, it's like, why are they better than me? Why are they deserving of love of their parents and I'm not? And that's when I have to sit down and think, this is not their problem. This is not for me to blame them. This is strictly a personal thing that is wrong with my family.
Right. And that's something that we talk about in shadow work, is that I like to point out to people the way we see a situation when we're younger is through a child's vision. Okay. So the way things happen are through a child's vision. We have to heal the child, right? Yeah. We have no control over the other parts of that situation.
Yeah.
We cannot control how they viewed that situation. Yeah. You can have siblings go through the exact same thing. And like my kids, some of them remember going to Alegria. Yeah. Some of them don't. Like we've taken the kids to Cirque du Soleil, and all of them.
I love that.
None of them remember it.
That's very true. Like my brother, he was not raised by my parents. He lived after, I think, the age of like 10 or 12 or something like that. My grandparents raised him. And even though he knows all this, I told him all this, everyone in the family knows what happened to me and stood by and let it happen. And he still says, I don't see that. I didn't see that. It doesn't affect me. And I'm like, you are invalidating me.
Yep. You hit the nail on the head when you said they stayed silent. That is something within the last year has become the bane of my existence. There are people that I consider very good who have stayed silent on subjects that they should not have stayed silent on. And because of that silence, you allow more children to get hurt. You allow more people to get hurt.
I'm sorry, if you are silent about something, you are showing support for that because you can actively stop it.
You are just as bad as the bully.
Nobody in my family at the time knew that I was raped at 16. They did not know 100% that that's why my parents beat me and kicked me out, because I brought sin into their home. And I told them this. I said, my dad literally, and I told my papa, I said, you know what it's like to have your father look at you and say that you were raped because that is God's punishment for you choosing this lifestyle. And in the state of North Carolina, at least at the time, I don't know the laws now, but at the time, if you are under the age of 18, you cannot talk to a lawyer or a police officer without a legal guardian. So I went to my parents. I said, y'all kick me out, whatever, but please let me go to the police. I need closure. And my dad said, you've made your bed, now you must lay in it. So my rapist, he still lives in this county. I see him all the time. And it's just till recently where I'm like, I have healed from that. I do not forgive him. I do not think that you have to forgive people to work through your trauma.
No.
I do not forgive him because he is not worthy of my forgiveness. But the way I look at it is like, fine, view me the way you want to view me. I talk to my parents, view me the way you want to view me. But you have allowed this person to potentially hurt other people, hurt other kids. So I'm sorry, you're just as guilty as the pedophile himself. And
it is about, I don't have to forgive. I do not have to forgive and forget.
That was a popular question. What do you have to forgive the person that hurt you to work through your trauma?
No. I have a couple of people in my life that have inflicted trauma on my life, and I do not forgive them. I do not forgive them. I do not forget what happened, but I do not have to spend my energy being angry all the time about it. You know, I can go, that wasn't fair. That shit shouldn't have happened. Excuse my language. I try never to cuss because I am a teacher. Like, I'm trying not to.
You're clearing that throat. You're clearing that throat chakra.
That's right.
You're right there.
You know, that shouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
You know, you can be angry that it shouldn't happen. You don't have to forgive them because it happened. Like, but you do need to stop giving your energy over, because that to me is giving the energy to the person over and over and over again.
Now, I will ask this, and if you do not want this in the video, I will edit it out. But I have heard you say, be open about this before. One of the witchy friends, she did not want her name disclosed, but she messaged me. She said that as someone like you who deals with chronic pain and chronic illness, she finds it hard to work through shadow work with that, because she thinks, why am I such a bad person? This is a rare thing. Why me? When there's pedophiles out there, there's murderers. Why did it happen to me?
Why do I have to be? Okay, so for me, I have a weird perspective on this.
Okay, cool.
I've always been chronically ill. When I was 18 months old, I became epileptic, and I was epileptic from the time I was a baby up until I was 12 years old. Being epileptic comes with a lot of things. It just comes with understanding a chronic illness. And I went through that at a very early age of, why me? Why do
it's
I
not just physical. It's not just physical.
Yeah, why do I have to have this? Why did this have to happen to me? And my understanding of it, like I said, is a little different. I have learned through my life that I have these things because people are going to be placed in my path that need my wisdom. They're going to need me to share what has helped, what has hurt, what has made me strong, what has made me weak. Like, they need to know those things. And so when I, like with this, the pseudotumor cerebri, you know, I have a fake brain tumor in my head.
I mean, I was in healthcare for 8 years and I've never heard of that.
Like,
it's rare.
Is a very, very rare thing. Basically, my brain thinks that I have a brain tumor that is not there. It has filled my skull with cerebral fluid to the point where, like, if I bend down or when I'm eating, I actually get cerebral fluid that leaks from my nose because I have a small hole located somewhere up here, but it's so small that they can't find it to repair. So it's like, it only happens when the pressure's high and I'm like bending down. I have a migraine disorder with it. Probably this thing is what caused the epilepsy when I was a kid, and it just wasn't caught. Now as I'm older, it's more of like a brain squish thing. It causes my temperature to not be regulated because it pushes against my pituitary gland sometimes. It's just not fun. It's not a fun thing. And so I get where you get frustrated. It's like, why me? Why do I have to have this? I'm a good person. Why am I the one that has to hurt like this? And the only comfort that brings me any peace of mind is the fact that I have been shown over and over again, people need my information. There's something about the way that I deliver the information about what I'm going through that helps people. So my purpose on this planet, I am absolutely 100% sure of, is to help people and educate them.
I love that. One of the last question we have from the Witchy friends is making up a song in my head.
Yep, that's it. We've already discussed that. That's cool.
The last question we have from the Witchy friend is, what is a misconception about shadow work or witchcraft that literally is the hill you'll die on?
Okay, So the misconception is that, one, I'm a devil worshiper.
Yes. I don't believe in the devil.
I don't even believe in many deities, okay? I believe it's an energy source, okay?
Yeah.
So, like, no, I don't. I'm not a part of the devil worshiping crowd. Do I know Satanists? Yes. I have some in my family. They're great people.
Yeah.
I'm not one of them, okay?
Yeah.
And no, they don't believe in Satan either.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing that gets me the most. And the other thing is, like, when people say shadow work and they want to think it's something spooky, like we're practicing dark magic. Is there dark magic? Yes.
Yeah.
Do I practice dark magic from time to time? Yes.
I'm not a love and light. It's not like, all love and light.
I'm very much a person of balance.
Yeah.
And there is a balance to be had. So, but most people think, okay, so your shadow work, you're practicing dark magic. No, shadow work is not dark magic. Shadow work is simply trying to light your own shadows and work with that dark energy that you have been hiding all this time. You're wanting to purify that energy and bring it out to the light, you know?
Yes.
So those are the two big misconceptions I think people have, is just like, no, we do not worship the devil. No. And I also get kind of upset when people say there can't be Christian pagans or Christian witches. That bothers me because, one, witchcraft has no rules, so stop making up rules.
And
right?
witchcraft in itself is inherently secular.
Right.
Someone asked me, how am I an atheist but also practice witchcraft? And I'm like, the metaphysical and energy exist outside of any religion.
Yes.
So but I still respect and I still acknowledge the existence of other people's deities. But to me, I'm like you, I think that's energy.
Yeah,
that they attached a name to.
It is just energy. Now, I did have some questions from my when I posted the TikTok, like, you know, what do you want to know?
Yes.
Let me find the comments real quick. I had a few. Is this a tough lesson? Hold on, I've got so many comments today because of a thing that I put in. I was like, okay, there we go. Is there a point? Of course. I hate that about TikTok. Like, you go to the comment and all of a sudden your video and you're like, I don't want to hear my voice.
I am so sick and tired of hearing my voice.
I know, like, I'm like, and then you're answering comments and so your family's hearing the same thing that you say over and over again. I'm just like, I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. So I have been asked, is there a point at which you'd consider shadow work done, or do you view it as an ongoing process? And I think we kind of talked about this a little bit. I do consider this an ongoing process because hopefully as you grow, you learn. And as you learn, you do better.
I have this thing that I believe if you cannot look at something you did a year ago and not find something wrong with it or not find a way you can better it, you're not growing.
Right. And that's what, to me, this whole journey around the planets are about, right? Is like just learning and growing. I had somebody also ask, like, how do you stay positive when shadow work gets tough?
I'm leaving the chat. No.
Right? Like, oh.
I have a lot of issues with this. I deal with mental illness and stuff like that. So when it comes to, since there's certain topics, like for me, being rape is no longer a sensitive topic to me. I can fully talk about it because I feel like I've worked through it enough where I feel like I can speak openly about it to help people. But when it comes to things about feeling invalidated or not loved by my parents, that's still a sore subject.
Yes.
And so it is hard to stay positive about it. But the way that I look at it is that my life, ever since I fully kicked my parents out almost a year ago now of my life, how much my life has gotten better. My peace of mind has gotten better. I finally, after 27 years, got to fully speak my truth. Yes. Without any interruptions. Even though they left once I spoke my truth, I got to say it. I don't need them to validate my existence and my trauma Because if you wait for your people that who cause this trauma to validate it, it's never going to happen.
It's no.
I'm sorry. In an ideal world, we like to say, well, one day my parents will come along. But then you also have to think, but what when they come around, what if I don't want them to be around? And that's valid.
Okay, so I'm going to share with you something about my own parents. I'm pretty sure you probably see my mom comment a couple of times on my TikTok because my mom is in my life and my mom.
She's supportive.
Yeah, like my mom is amazing. Like, I love her. My biological father, and you heard me earlier say I call my stepdad my dad. Emotionally, he wasn't always like my stepdad emotionally wasn't always there because he's not good with emotions.
Yeah.
But he was always there for me.
Yeah.
My biological father, how do I don't have many good things to say about him. He is part of the trauma. And this is where I struggle with, because I don't want to talk bad about the people that hurt me. And I don't want to publicly say, you know, you're an asshole, but like, that's how I view him.
I was going to ask you, how do you see that? Because I, for the longest time, refused to even acknowledge what my parents did to me, because I'm like, they're my parents. I can't say anything bad about them because I would have this guilt, like they gave me life.
Well, see, it's not even a guilt. Like, I worry, like, I don't want to cause them any undue harm from outsiders. And I know that people love me.
Yes.
And that if I said something against somebody, that the people who love me would want to come to my defense.
Yes.
So I often try to keep my opinions very positive because I don't want to cause any drama. Yeah. But as far as understanding where you're coming from, I was disowned by my father a couple of times over being a witch. And it's hurtful to be told some really hateful, ugly things. And even though he was never a great dad, he was never a dad. He was a father, but he wasn't a dad. I seen him do some really ugly things in my life that affected the way I see the world.
Yeah.
And it got to a point where he disowned me again for like the last time. He disowned me and called me everything but a good child. I was in my 30s and I thought to myself, why do I sign up for this every time? Why do I forgive him every time after he says negative things to me? And that was part of my early shadow work, is that I have to be worth enough to say, no, you don't get to hurt me again. Yeah. Your track record shows that you are going to hurt me again. You don't get to do that. And so as much as it hurts, and I understand this, they are your parents, you know, it hurts to say, I no longer want anything to do with my parent. And it was very painful to get to a point of also knowing that if he dies, I won't be there. Yeah. I'm not going to be at the funeral. It's also very hurtful that I have siblings by him, and I see them doing family things. And that's very painful to watch that and know that you were never accepted. You were never told that you were perfect just the way you are. And again, that's where I get into that. This is why I do what I do with kids. You know, I don't want them to ever feel like they aren't good enough for love, that love should be unconditional. And so I learned unconditional love through my mother, and I learned what it didn't look like through my father.
Sad stuff.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that
it is. Like
it's sad, but the thing, that's the thing, that shadow work, it shouldn't be pretty.
No.
And because the things that were done to us were not pretty. So we have to be brutally honest And it's okay to take time for yourself.
Yeah, and that whole positivity while being in this, it again comes to knowing yourself well enough to know, okay, I've had enough for right now. Like my meter's full.
Yeah.
I need to go do something positive. For me, you can always tell in my family, like I'm out of sorts when I've come to this room. This is my craft room that I'm in. So if everybody wonders like what room I'm in, I'm actually in a craft room. I've got like a paint rack. Like
all the spray paint I cleaned up my room a little bit because I was like, she's gonna think that, because I think we all tried to like want to have that perfect witchy aesthetic and like we have everything put in place, and once we use this marker right here, we're gonna put it right back. I could not tell you if this is dried out or not because it lays on my desk.
So my husband is a neat freak. Like he has to have everything organized. And so this is why the craft room looks that way. Like I've got a whole rack of adhesives, a whole rack of paints. We've got all my clay tools and stuff. So that way he can find it. For me though, if it was just me, this room would be atrocious. Yes. There would be no finding anything.
My husband comes in my witchy room sometimes. He says, I understand that your witchy room is your room, and I respect that. But you have to realize that you feel peace in here, but when I walk in, I don't feel peace because all I see is disaster. Exactly. I am the bull in the china shop. I break everything. He
calls me the queen of chaos. He calls me the queen of chaos.
People ask my husband, like, my husband said that sometimes he thinks, am I too gay? He says, then he looks at me and he's like, nah, I could be gayer. But he said at the end of the day, he says, you are the gayest thing I know, but you are still a gross boy at your core.
You know, and I'm going to say this, and I know it's probably generalizing, but I haven't met any men that aren't like a gross boy at the core.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I have what I consider the unicorn of men. Like my husband he's everything to me.
I am a spoiled, rotten house husband.
Yes. Well, I'm not a housewife. I do work. I wish I was a housewife.
Well, I'm just a house husband until I can figure out if I pass this drug test or not. And then I won't be a house husband anymore.
I would say that I wish I was a housewife. Actually, I wouldn't be able to. I am not housewife material, like sitting down and doing nothing. That is not me. I say that, but I've been a housewife before, and I know it's not sitting down doing anything. It's like running after children constantly and like cleaning and stuff. But my husband, we made a deal early on because we have 5 kids together. Yeah, I know.
I want 4. And I say that to people who have kids, and they're like, wait till you have 1. You won't want 4.
No. You'll want more. You'll still want more. I had 3 from my first marriage, and he had 2 from his first marriage, and he had custody over his daughters. So when we got together, it became a blended family of 5 kids, all of them within like a year or 2 of each other. So they're like quite literal stair steps. But when we got together, we realized how big the family dynamic was and like how much of a workload it is to take care of a family that large.
You're like Lucille Ball, yours, mine, and ours.
Right? So we don't have an ours, thank God. I think if we had an ours, like that child, oh my God, would be so confused. It wouldn't know if it wanted to cover things in concrete or just hug trees all day. Like, I don't know.
How can I organize things and kiss trees all day long?
Exactly. And it would
while having green hair.
It would have the floofiest hair. My husband has really super curly hair, and I have super curly hair. So it'd be like,
I saw your video yesterday. You're like, when you were showing how you do your hair, you're like, this is my hair when it's wet. I didn't curl it, but I'm like, your hair is so curly.
Yeah, no, I do not curl. I don't put products in my hair. This is kind of what happens naturally. It's just my hair does.
That's probably why your hair is healthy.
Weird thing. You would think it wouldn't be because I've bleached it a lot to get it to be green. But
that's not natural.
I know. Shocking. The funniest.
That's gonna be the thumbnail. She lied to us all. Green hair is fake.
It's fake. That's right. No, you say that, and it's funny because all my TikToks I take, because I am yearbook advisor, right? So I know headlines, and I'm like, I look at the TikToks when I'm making them. I'm like, what would make people click on this? Like, like what can I say that make people click on this?
She says she says that she hates all trees. And
Right?
then really you're like, I love trees.
Like there's a video that I put on about my husband and I and how we met, and it just says he found me. And I was like, people are gonna be like, oh, who found me?
True crime story.
Right, yeah. So, but that's, as far as shadow work, I think that's what's gotten me to be okay with who I am today. I'm not saying I'm great with who I am today, because there's things that we all work on. Do I know
as you
everything?
think that you get through something, as soon as you think you get through with something, pops up 6 months later.
Now, the biggest thing I will tell people that I have learned, and I don't know if you have found this to be true as well, but I tell people, and you've heard me say it on my YouTube live sessions, when you are encountering a painful situation, it is something that you need to learn. Like when we are in a painful situation, there is something that we have to learn through that situation. When we don't learn what we were supposed to learn, it will keep being presented to us. The situation might be a little different, but it's the same song and dance, like constantly over and over. So I tell people that when you're doing shadow work, when you've learned something, make sure you've learned it, or you will repeat this process.
And also
and
trauma is multiple
Yeah.
multiple layers.
Yes.
Multiple layers. It's not just this. Most of the time we think we get through, especially with me with my parents stuff, I think I've gotten through it and I feel at peace, but I feel like I'm only chiseling. I feel like an architecture, like an archaeologist. I'm only chiseling the top. I haven't even gotten to the fossil yet.
Because here's the other thing that we got to figure it out. It's like, okay, so we've gotten to the bottom of it and we realize, okay, it's this person and this phrase that did this into me, right? Like, this is why I feel this way. Okay, so why was it that person and that phrase that caused you so much harm? What was it that made them think that was okay to do? You know? So
like that's a very good point.
The door.
That's a very good point, because I'm like,
I'm going to show you what my husband just brought in. He knew I'm doing a recording, and he knows I haven't eaten dinner yet. So you know what he just did? He opened up the door, trail mix, and a drink.
oh, my husband loves those sparkling waters, and it's like if oranges farted in a can. It's like just a hint.
When my daughter first tried it, all of them were like, "Oh, it tastes like hairspray." My husband goes,
Yeah,
"How do you know what hairspray tastes like?" And I was like,
don't ask
"Anybody
questions.
that's used hairspray knows what hairspray tastes like."
Don't ask questions if you don't want to know the answers.
Right?
I love that. Was there any more questions from your witchy friends?
No, actually, I think that the people that follow me are still trying to figure out whether or not I'm a safe person.
Yeah.
Like, do I really want to ask her? Does she really know her stuff? And that's a struggle that I have also, is like with that imposter syndrome. When I don't have the likes on a video, I have to get over that. I have to get over the fact that those likes don't mean that I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Like that.
Other people don't validate your practice.
Right.
Although I had a mental breakdown yesterday because it was just a horrible, horrible day. And I thought I posted a video. I was like, literally I posted something on my Etsy store, and I was like, literally nobody has even favorited it or anything.
Yes.
And I know that's like something I need to get out of my head. And then I go on there, I didn't even post it.
I didn't even post anything on Etsy.
Yeah.
I've had Etsy for let's see, hold on. In 2012. So I've had Etsy for 9-10 years now, and did not know you could post stuff on Etsy. That's what I'm gonna do tonight. Because I struggle with that with my store. I started Etsy to get out of another shadow.
Yeah.
I think that my artwork isn't good enough. And I have been an
Lies.
artist all my life. So
I own some of your work. It is stunning.
well, thank you. I wish more people would purchase it though. But
Yeah.
you know, that doesn't validate whether or not my art is good. You know, like
I literally felt so invalidated yesterday because someone messaged me on Etsy and was like,
I
"Hey,
heard
so
that.
what's the lowest price you're willing to
No,
take?" And I'm like, "Are you?" Because I thought maybe they were talking about my grimoire pages, and I'm thinking maybe they want to buy it in bulk, then I'll cut you a deal. But
Yeah.
they're like, "No, I just don't want to pay that price." And I'm like, "It's not a garage sale."
Yeah, this isn't a garage sale. This isn't up for debate. This is the work that I put in, and this is the worth that I think I am at. I've got a fairy coffin on my Etsy store that's $40. And I've had people ask me, they're like, well, that doesn't look like $40 material. And I was like, but that was $40 worth of work. Okay.
Yeah.
Like the material, I don't even have counted in that, but I hand burned that coffin. Okay.
And that's the other thing. This stuff's resin is expensive.
Yes. Yes. The resin that I buy, this stuff, you know, this is the cheapest one. And for, you know, a half gallon is still $90.
And so, it doesn't last long.
No, it does not. So, you know, I try to keep things in my shop that I think people would like, but then I also have to realize that my artwork was never for them.
Yeah.
My artwork, like I have an Etsy store because it is my wish that maybe one day I can leave public education, because public education is killing my soul. I would love to leave public education and be able to have my own art classes, whatever, you know. I'd like to have my artwork take off, but I have to remind myself that that's not what this is for. I brought in more.
You got you a good one.
Brought me sushi with chopsticks in.
That is a good husband. Well,
He's amazing. He really is.
It is going to be a lot of editing. So is there plus I don't want to keep you so long. I've already kept you like 2 hours. Is there any other thing that you think that you'd want to? Also, a tradition in your videos, would you like to pull a universal card for all the witchy friends?
Oh, I can actually.
That's my favorite part of your videos.
Which deck would you like me to use? The Goddess, the Rider-Waite, or the Dark Wood?
Dark Wood kind of scares me.
Dark Wood actually is probably the easiest one as far as it doesn't give you my Rider-Waite tarot deck. They're assholes.
Mine don't give a damn about my feelings.
No, they don't give a damn about feelings. The Dark Tarot, the Darkwood Tarot, they don't care. Like they'll give you the truth as the truth is. There's no like.
But that's what I need.
Yeah,
exactly. I'm oblivious. I love my Oracle deck, but I feel like it's a little too soft-spoken. It's like, hey, you need to be nice to yourself.
I need a different Oracle deck because I'd like one that would help me connect to the spirits a little bit better.
This is my prized possession in my...
You've shown me that before. I need that. I need to get that book.
They have it on ABE Books. I love ABE Books.
I know.
So much.
ABE Books is awesome.
You turned me on to ABE Books.
I love it.
You mentioned it in one of your YouTube videos when I was watching but not messaging or commenting, and you said that everyone needs to go to ABE Books. Quit paying full price for books.
Yes.
I got this one for $3, and apparently that was a steal because they found it on Goodwill, but they have it right now for $18.
It's like $18 now.
I love it. It is
right?
It is so it's my prized possession in my whole thing.
I'm such a it's also because I'm an English teacher, but I'm definitely a collector of books. I love books. The older the book, I don't care what it is about. It's just an old book. Let me smell the pages. Like I am that weirdo. Okay.
Smell the ammonia.
All right, let's get you a universal card for ending this. Like, what is, let's ask the tarot, what is the one thing that is important about shadow work for everyone watching this? What is the thing that people need to realize? Okay. Oh, got two that came out.
Ooh.
That's pretty interesting.
It's usually just one.
Oh, okay, that other card. Oh,
Shadow work's not pretty.
oh no. You got the Tower.
Oh,
We need to realize,
yes.
we need to realize that this is destroying patterns. This is destroying who we thought we were to rebuild ourselves better. Okay.
Breaking those generational curses.
That's exactly it. So you've got, you definitely need to make sure you understand that this is just destruction at its most beautiful aspect. We review destruction as something bad, and actually destruction is something that can have good to it. Like, yes, we live in Florida, and one of the places my husband took me to for our first date, it got demolished 5 years later.
I thought you were just going to say demonic.
No, it got demolished. It got demolished like 5 years later, and we can't go back to that place, right? But the place that they built in place of it is beautiful and has so much more artwork to it, right? I'm like, okay, so it wasn't all bad. We also got the Queen of Swords over here.
It's crazy that it's crazy that it goes back to what you were talking about when we were both talking about in the beginning, how when we're put to the heat, that's when we transform. Fire does not destroy, it just transforms into a different matter. It's full circle.
It is, and that's what we got to remember, and that's why this card got pulled. We've got to remember that it's full circle. We got the Queen of Swords in shadow, and the meaning of her is critical, makes fun of others. Nothing is ever good enough because you don't feel good enough. Harsh critics keep others at a distance and shut down possibilities. So this card is speaking on our fact that as we work on our shadows, we need to listen to those negative thoughts that we are telling ourselves, and realizing those critiques are not real. Those critiques are preventing us from becoming the best part of ourselves. So we need to unmask those lies and go, nope, not listening to that. I am the best part of me.
Exactly.
Right? I have worth. I am powerful. Somebody's asked also about my haunting. Like, why do I teach kids, especially kids? I teach kids how to scare. And they're like, isn't that like you're teaching them a mean thing? No. For me, haunting and witchcraft and everything kind of go hand in hand, especially with shadow work. When you learn to master fear, you learn that no one can control fear for you. Like, they can't control you using it.
Yes.
You understand how to use that person's fear. You become powerful. Yes, fear and making people feel afraid makes us feel powerful.
Yeah.
But for kids who have been hurt, when they scare others, that power heals them.
And they learn that it's just words. And even though words can hurt, at the end of the day, words are horrible. And as an English teacher, you know a lot of words. But at the end of the day, you're able to take the words, like me and my husband all the time, like all grown up, like as my parents called me a faggot, a queer, it's like that. But now, like me and my husband, we're like, shut up, you stupid faggot. And like people look at us like we're crazy. Like, no, we're taking words that were used to hurt us, and we're giving them like we feel empowered. Yeah.
And I get that. For me in my classroom though, they're not using it to empower the word. And exactly. So that's why it is one of the few words. Yeah. I mean, I will let you drop the F-bomb in my classroom and I'll go, oh, that was a mistake. Let's try not to do it, again, like I get it, we all curse. But you drop the F-bomb, that's what I consider the F-bomb.
Yeah.
You drop that word and it's an immediate, and I tell kids in the beginning of the school year too. So it also lets them know where my boundary is, like without having to step on conservative toes. Those conservative children know, oh,
I mean
she
business.
protects people. Yeah.
This
And
is a
the
safe
kids-
space.
Yeah, this is a safe space. And that's ultimately what I try to create, is a safe space, because we're all constantly doing shadow work. We're all
Yes.
constantly doing shadow work. In my mind, it's a constant thing, and you need safety in order to heal and process and become better.
So before we go, where can people find you and find your art?
Okay, so I have a link tree. You can go to Linktree and go to the Whimsical Mrs. M. That is my link tree, and it'll give you my Etsy store. It'll give me my YouTube. My YouTube is Talking with Mrs. M. But everywhere else, you can find me as the Whimsical Mrs. M, because I have been told I'm very whimsical. So,
And I'll have her link tree linked in the information, so you could find her. Her art is stunning. She is an amazing witch. She's an amazing person, and she's an amazing content creator. So go follow, subscribe, and buy her art.
Thank you very, very much. And